Hello, wine friends, and welcome back. On today's podcast, I am joined by Duncan Gammie, sommelier and founder of the Wee Vinoteca, recently named Wine Club of the Year. We are chatting about one of his Christmas wine boxes, sharing our favourite festive pairings and exploring why each wine was picked from grapes to regions. And, well, with all this Christmas cheer, if you're enjoying the episodes, do not forget to leave a rating and a review on your podcast app. So pour yourself a glass, get cosy, and let's talk ideal Christmas wines. Duncan, are you ready to talk about Christmas?
I am.
Now, obviously, I think it's nice that we loosen things up. So I think, if you're happy, we should start with a round of perfect Christmas pairings. Are you ready to do this?
I'm ready. Quick fire round.
Okay, right. So I have put together a list of things that I think most of us will most likely be eating. So let's start with some smoked salmon blinis.
If I've been really good and really organised, I like a very special champagne or a really lovely English sparkling wine.
Do you know what? In my head, I was like sparkling for sure, because you want that absolute zip that's going to cut through the oil. But I was also thinking, and I actually realised this is possibly one of my classic wines for Christmas in general.
Yeah.
Chablis. I just think Chablis is so versatile, and it has that razor sharp acidity, but it also has that kind of, I always get a little bit of salinity and saltiness. And then I think that kind of goes with the smoked vibe of the salmon. But I'm with you with the sparkling wine.
I think that the sparkling wine thing is like, not only does it work as a pairing, but also as an experience. Like, it's a very decadent thing, having these little tiny bits of food, and it's smoked salmon, and then you've got a glass of fizz. I think like the whole experience just feels very decadent. I like that at Christmas.
I just want everyone listening, we are going to spend this episode talking about all different wines. You can have your perfect Christmas, but basically, rule number one, if in doubt, just go bubbles, right?
I mean... Yeah, I think, I talk a lot about the fact like that there's pairing for food, which is what we're going to talk about. And then there's also pairing for mood. And sometimes you could just have a great day just drinking loads of bubbles. And, that's quite a nice Christmas.
Well, I think sparkling is mood and food. Yeah. Okay, what about prawn cocktail?
This is one where I would probably go a little bit rogue. And it's actually one of the wines we're going to talk about a wee bit later on, which is Assyrtiko. So it's a Greek grape variety. And, you were talking about Chablis a second ago, and it's kind of all the things that you were saying about that, but just kind of veered off to the side a little bit, slightly weird and wonderful.
Yeah, that's interesting. So again, and we will talk about this, everyone, hang on. But again, you can get this real minerality, maybe you're getting salinity. And I was thinking about what could be really fun and really crazy and different to pair with a prawn cocktail. And I thought, what do you think of a Chacolina Rosado?
Ah, that's quite fun. Yeah, that's like a nice little middle ground between the fizz and yeah, that's great.
Right, a little bit of light effervescence, but of course you could go white, but I'm thinking actually going pink as well, so it's actually fruitier because there's that tanginess in the sauce, but at the same time it's got some salinity, and you're going to squeeze some lemons and there might be a hint of spice. So I just like the idea of like a fruity, bright, light, slightly effervescent wine. I mean, the problem is trying to get hold of a Chacolina is not always the easiest thing.
I think that's probably a better pairing in a way. I think that sounds amazing. Yeah, and it just, there's something nice about it. You say like with prawn cocktail, not only do you have the sea film in it, but you've got that kind of real creamy richness in the sauce, and so something with a bit of bubbles to cut through. That'd be cool. Yeah.
And if you are trying the pink, then they will have blended together the white and the red variety of the region. So these are the Hondurabi grapes. So something new to try. Yes, good. Okay, so hang on. We both got a point in the first one. Do I get a point? And have I just turned this into a competition?
It should be a competition. So far, you're winning. You've got 2 points. I've got 1.
Okay.
I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Right, let's go with Stilton and crackers.
I'm going traditional here, and I'm going to go Sauternes because it's nectar of the gods and it's kind of hard to beat.
I thought you might go port because that's also going to be traditional.
I really like port, and I think that it does work really nicely. But even though Sauternes is still a well-known option within like our circle of the world, to the general public, they wouldn't consider a white sweet wine with Stilton. And I think I like introducing people to that. And I'm going, but this is sweet white wine. And we have red wine with cheese normally, or port. And you're like, not always.
No, it's perfect. Sweet and salty.
Yeah.
So I decided to go off-piste because, again, port would be the just obvious choice. And I thought about a Banyuls from the Roussillon region down in the south of France. So port styled, but because they're using Grenache and then fortifying it, you don't get quite that luscious intensity. It's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit brighter, but you still get a little bit of dry fruits and cacao and nuts. What do you think?
I would almost argue that that is a better match than a port.
Yeah.
I think it's quite, I think you said there's like a nice fruity element to that.
But I don't know. I think I'd be happy with both. I'm happy that we both get a point.
Okay, fine. Deal.
But anyone who hasn't tried Banyuls, I think actually this is also, we took Port and Sauterne, some of the best sweet wines, or sweet fortified wines of the world. But Banyuls, you're like, actually the value for money that you're going to get.
I always think with sweet wine, it's such a difficult thing because, food and wine pairing is tricky. Food and wine pairing with sweet wines or sweet elements is like God level of food and wine pairing. It's really hard to get right. And so lots of people try it and then they get a bit disheartened. But yeah, I think something like, if you want to try something new this Christmas, a good Banyuls would be a really cool thing to try out.
And sweet and salty, everyone. This is the when you get the perfect contrast.
Yes.
And so, yes, blue cheese with something sweet. Pick anything, go for it. Okay, going to now a standard dish that I think many might be having. What about roast turkey with all the trimmings?
All the things. My preference here is to go for a white wine over red wine.
Okay.
And my preference would be to go for something like an oaked Chardonnay.
Yeah, classic.
Again, I totally understand that Pinot Noir is like another option. So you can either go like full white or light red. But on a personal preference note, I get a wee bit more excited about a really good oak Chardonnay than I do a Pinot Noir, I suppose.
And honestly, that is absolutely perfect and super classic. But I decided to think about, I'm always thinking with the turkey that actually it's what goes with it. So you're going to have some sage and onion stuffing and you're going to have piggies in a blanket and you're going to add all these extra bits and you might put a little bit of cranberry sauce on there. So I would love to pair it with a garnacha from Sierra de los Gredos. So this is the region, this has been mentioned on a podcast only a few weeks ago as well, where this is a region because of the high altitude, the old bush vines, you get this silky, gorgeous, vibrant style of Grenache or Garnacha, but that is almost Pinot Noir-like in style. It's Pinot Noir in soul, but it's Garnacha in body.
Yeah. Oof. I think that what that would have that be Pinot Noir lacked, as you kind of said, is that kind of weight and that intensity. It's going to have probably a little bit more alcohol, so it's going to be a little bit more kind of viscous, and that would work quite nicely. I like that.
So I don't know, but you've gone with the classic. I don't like this competition. I feel like we're both winners.
I think this is it. I think you won the prawn cocktail round. I'm very happy to admit that. But all the other ones, I think it highlights the fact that when it comes to food and wine pairing, a lot of times people talk about this is the perfect pairing, and there is no such thing. It's very much like you can go so many different directions from here, and it's kind of fun that we've both gone different directions each time.
And it's so subjective. See now, okay, roast beef. This is for me. I just literally listed everything from, I was like Bordeaux, Malbec, Rioja, Northern Rhone. I just go with the big-ish, juicy.
I think this is one where, from my perspective, and again, I'm thinking about the fact that it's Christmas time. For someone in my world, I've just finished the busiest time of the year, and if I'm ever going to buy a special bottle to treat myself, it's probably in and around Christmas. And so I went for a classic Bordeaux, but it would be one that would be substantially more than I would ever spend on a bottle, like a real one-off treat for myself.
I think if you go for a really nice, I would be tending to go to a left bank, which is Cabernet Sauvignon dominant, as opposed to right bank, which is Merlot. And the idea of something like, for me, a Pauillac, where it's that real cigar box, it's a little bit graphitey. It really has obviously all of that cassis, but there's a slight earthiness to it.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're presumably, again, having some stuffing and sage and herbs and you're putting rosemary and you're putting lots of stuff alongside your beef, that will just feel like, with all of its complexity, it should match with all the different flavors of your roast dinner, right?
I think as well, it's one of those ones that, from my perspective, I like the fact that, whilst the roast beef is cooking, like, you can pour yourself that first glass and you can kind of, you can savor the wine on its own terms and be like, wow, this is a special bottle. Here's all the flavors you just kind of talked about. Here's all the things that make it amazing. And then you get to kind of enjoy it with the meal. And, I think it's rare that you get a really special bottle, but when you do, it's kind of a really important thing to like take your time and have some fun with it. So yeah, I'd go classic.
And top tip, make sure you decant it, I would say, if you're getting a good Bordeaux, an hour in advance before you have that first little tipple.
Yes.
What about for our veggie lovers out there that are going to go for a nut roast this Christmas?
I have gone for Loire Valley Cab Franc.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes.
Again, I think Cab Franc's kind of a great variety or wine style that's kind of underrated and not particularly well known. And so any excuse to introduce people to that, I quite like. But, with the kind of real kind of nutty, intense flavors from the nut roast, something that's a bit lighter and a bit fruitier and stuff, I think would be a nice contrast to that.
That's a really, really lovely choice, because Cabernet Franc, it has the fruit, but it also has something quite savoury. It has that little kind of often violets, but it maybe even a little bit of bluer fruit, but then it can also have a decent amount of spice. I decided, anybody who knows where I've been in the last month or two will know I was in the south of Sicily tasting a lot of Cereswallo di Vittoria, and really fell in love with it. Yep. And I think this could be a really interesting shout, because you've got this blend of Nero d'Avola, which tends to give you more of the licorice and the spice, but it blends with Frappato, which is all like rose petals and it's juicy. And so together you get this softness, but then this power, and it kind of comes together in like this kind of gamey deliciousness. So I think that with the spices and then the meatiness, you're like, well, you've got the nut, now you're bringing the meat in wine format. I think that would be a nice choice, and possibly a shout that people don't necessarily think of either.
I think, as you said, like the running trend is you want something that's a bit vibrant, and Frappato is a really good example of that. It's got this, as you kind of said, like really fun kind of vibrant character to it.
Okay, we will be here forever, so I'm going to cut short some of ours, unless there's one that you really want. I'm going to go for sweets now. Like, okay, we're all going to have some mince pies. Yeah. What would you pair with your mince pies?
Tawny port. Ideally, a tawny 20-year port. I'd maybe, if I was feeling adventurous, even serve it a wee bit chilled.
What? Adventurous. Oh, I absolutely think that would be perfection. Yeah. I feel like I don't know why I didn't even think of that one. That one is ideal. I went with Vinsanto. So going to Tuscany, the holy wine. I mean, it feels appropriate that we should be drinking some holy wine over what is a holy season.
Yeah, definitely.
Is it not?
Yeah.
But so for me, I chose that because obviously they dry the grapes. And I love the fact that I feel like it really goes well with short crust pastry, because you've got the kind of the caramel, the almond notes and dried fruits. So it kind of, it's a little like for like, but again, with a tawny port, that kind of, I feel like tawny port is going to be more elegant, whereas Vinsanto is going to be more plush and luscious. And you are already getting sweetness in the mince pies. So yeah, or maybe I would jump to tawny.
I think both work. Again, it's just one of these ones where I've had a couple of like really nice old tawny ports, and I can just automatically picture myself in that situation, and it feels again like a nice treat.
I would say for anybody who is after tawny, first of all, an episode only a few weeks ago, episode 238, I was talking about my trip to Douro, and I really did go into detail on tawny. I think 20 years, especially for Christmas, is the sweet spot where if I could go 30, I would totally go 30. Like 30 now, you not only get all of the caramelized nuttiness, but it starts going that walnut savoury, maybe even a little bit more umami. It just is absolute elegance. But 20, I think, is the sweet spot, because you're not having to spend as much money, but you really start getting all of those interesting tertiary characters coming through, which you lack in the 10 years. But if you can be indulgent, everybody, if you can get to 30, go 30.
I think it's one of these ones that if you were to ask most people about port, their default thing in their head is something like a Ruby or an LBV, and people have maybe tried tawny, but to try, as you said, something that's got that like noticeable tertiary development is just a new experience, and I think that would Yeah, as you said, if you can do one thing this Christmas, try a really nice old tawny port.
And it's not weighty. I think that's the thing. There's obviously richness in your palate, but they feel really lifted. They dance in your mouth when you get to 20, 30, 40, 50 or 80, if anyone wants to be extra indulgent.
Invite me if you do, because that sounds like an experience, yeah.
Uh-huh. What about sticky toffee pudding?
In my head, the only thing that can work with sticky toffee pudding is Pedro Jimenez.
Okay.
I mean, again, it sounds like you've got a different answer, which is great. But,
I do.
I love sticky toffee pudding, but it is so intense that the only thing that jumps to my mind is a Pedro Jimenez.
Wow. What about a sweet wine that has often been forgotten? Passito de Pantelleria, from the little island off of Sicily that's closer to Tunisia.
Yeah.
And for me, this is a sweet wine that's just not like any other sweet wine. Like, they are drying the grapes, like we've already mentioned, Vinsanto and so many other wines. And Pedro Jimenez, dried grapes again for the intensity. But there's this, I don't know, because of the volcanic soils of this island, there is something so perfumed. Also, they're using Zabibo, which is Muscat d'Alexandria.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it really balances with this nutty umami nature. And you can't describe it when you have a good Passito de Pantelleria. Like the aromas are something caramelized, but not fresh, but not. It's just a juxtaposition. So I went with that one.
That sounds, I mean, to be fair, a glass of Pedro Jimenez and a good sized portion of sticky toffee pudding, like that's your day ruined. Like, you are not doing anything with your day after that. Yours sounds a little bit more like maybe not a balanced meal, but it sounds like something that is maybe more of a balanced pairing. Well,
we will get to Pedro Jimenez at the end of this podcast, because I'm going to be opening up one. And one of the sweetest wines probably in the world in terms of residual sugar. That is serious. What about something less sticky, less sweet, and like a panettone?
Okay, so this is one where I think that the quality of what you buy is really, really important, because bad versions of this are awful, but good versions are lovely. Moscato d'Asti.
I was going to put this, and Moscato d'Asti is just the funnest wine in the wine world. It is the wine world secret, isn't it? Just peachy and delicious and soft, and just, it is so joyful. And you're missing a very important point. At about 5.5% alcohol, you can just drink. It's guilt-free drinking. You will get through Christmas.
I'm going to be honest. We sell quite a lot of it in the run-up to Christmas as a Christmas morning wine. Like, you can wake up and you can have a cheeky glass of it with, like, you know, whatever decadent Christmas breakfast you want, and you can still do things for the rest of your day. So that's, I think that's a very important fact. It's got all the fun things: low alcohol, just a little bit of spritz, just a little bit of residual sugar. And it's one of these ones that, in premise, if you describe it to someone who's never tried it, they're like, that sounds rubbish. And then the second they try it, they're like, oh, okay, I owe you an apology here. Like, this is brilliant.
So I did think of that, but actually, and I was also trying to not be classic, but a really lovely Prosecco Superiore, so the DOCG part, the Garantita part, which then comes from between Valdobbiadene and Conegliano, this very hilly area, heroic viticulture because it's so steep, an extra dry or a dry category in terms of sweetness levels. So something between 12 and 17, ideally, which is your extra dry. I think just that light sweetness would echo the light sweetness of the panettone. And I just think, you know, when again, like the softness of the bubbles and the softness of the panettone.
Yeah.
So, but I think Moscato, or I'd go with Prosecco if you want cleaner, lighter, like less flavorful. And I'd go with the Moscato d'Asti if you want just really like bursting with joyous sunshine.
Yeah, definitely.
On a horrible rainy day, yucky grey day of winter, Moscato d'Asti literally is gonna lighten the mood, is it not?
Brighten your day, exactly.
Okay, a few more and then let's get on to you. Leftover turkey sandwich. I mean, we've all got it in the fridge. What are you going to have?
I'm glad you include this. Like, this is a very important part of Christmas for me. I want like a easygoing GSM style blend. If it can be new world over old world and be a little bit more fruit focused, I'd quite like that. But I just something kind of medium bodied and pretty easygoing, I think.
Now, Duncan, you said GSM. There may be some listeners that don't know what a GSM blend is, Duncan.
GSM
what is that?
Grenache Shiraz Mourvedre. it doesn't necessarily mean that the Grenache is the biggest proportion, but it's in essence the same grape varieties that we'd find in the southern Rhone, so like Côte de Rhône and Châteauneuf-du-Pape would be the most famous examples. But that blend kind of stretches across the south of France into northern Spain. It's really popular in South Africa and Australia, and you kind of get this really nice medium-bodied wine where, you know, the Grenache is giving you body and weight. Shiraz gives you kind of black fruit and a bit of spice. And I just think it's a lovely, lovely style of wine.
Agreed. Well, interesting. I've gone for another Rhone variety, or south of France, Sanso. But for me, because it's got this lovely cranberry red fruited nature to it, but Sanso, we are talking either, in my opinion, Swartland in South Africa or Itata Valley in Chile. I think these two places, so taking it away from France, they've got such old vines, the purity, the lightness, the freshness. They have this gorgeous acidity that will like all match with what I think there's going to be some cranberry in your turkey sandwich. Like, you got to do it. I think Sanso is this absolutely delightful, pure, fruited, delicate, but really yummy red wine that hasn't been given enough attention. So that's where I would go.
I like that. I think the important thing, and you touched on it there, is that kind of like what we talked about with Moscato d'Asti, good quality Sanso is phenomenal. I think traditionally had a kind of reputation as being like a little bit of a workhorse grape.
Yeah.
And it was rare that you'd see examples by itself. But if you can get examples where it's old vines or the winemaker's taking like real care in the vineyard to manage yields, you end up with an incredible wine. And so, yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Right. Well, listen, tell everyone. Everyone is like, who is this guy even giving us advice? Should we even listen to him? Who are you? And what is the Wee Vinoteca?
So I'm Duncan, and I founded the Wee Vinoteca about 7 years ago. And we are an award-winning wine club, shop and bar in Hitchin. Hitchin is kind of halfway between London and Cambridge, and it's a really nice little market town. And we believe in the idea of kind of less but better. And so what that means is that we value quality of range over quantity of range. Our shop has no more than 100 wines, and that range is something we spend a lot of time curating and filtering, and we change it seasonally. And I kind of believe that when the customer comes in, it helps them have a more enjoyable experience. They're more likely to be a bit adventurous and try something a bit different because we've done the hard work and kind of picked the best for them already.
So you do this wine club though, don't you? And it was this year that the International Wine Challenge picked you above everyone as the best wine club. So how often do people get their wine boxes if they join the wine club?
So the wine club sends out a case of wine every 2 months, 6 bottles every 2 months.
Oh, I'd need it more regularly. No.
Well, I mean, you know, I think that it shows a certain degree of restraint. You've got to go 2 weekends without wine, or you just come in or go online and order more wine. But the idea behind the wine club was very much, you know, getting to do the sommelier role, but at home for people. So what we're doing that is slightly different is instead of going for one size fits all, we're looking at each person as an individual and curating cases to their needs. So like if you're someone that says, I don't like Chardonnay, you won't get a Chardonnay from us. If you're someone that says, I really enjoy wines from Italy, but I'm wanting to be a bit more adventurous, then we'll take you to places like Greece. But we'll use the preferences we know and the feedback you give us to kind of curate your cases as you're going on. So some of our customers have been with us for about 5 years now. And when we go to like our wine trips or we go to our big industry tastings and I try something, I'm kind of writing down in the margins like, oh yeah, John Smith, you know, Tim, I'm writing the names of the people who I'm like, I know they will like this wine.
I love that. That's so personalised. That's so beautiful. Well, now I don't have any of wines from your wine club service, but of course that's very personal to everyone, as you said. What I do have though is, thank you for sending me a box, your Christmas wine box, but not just the Christmas wine box. This is one of your alternatives, which have been picked by you and your staff.
Yes.
Yay!
Yes, exactly.
So, okay. I mean, actually, probably, maybe maybe it's time that I open up the first one.
Yeah.
And then you can start taking us through why you guys chose this. And I'm going to start off with a sparkling wine. Yay for England. I appreciate that you have chosen an English sparkling wine. Black Chalk. Why did this one go in the box?
So I think, we talked earlier on about champagne.
Woo! Christmas has started.
we talked earlier about kind of sparkling wines, and I think that English sparkling wine is just such an incredible thing for us. I think we're having such a lovely opportunity to be in a country producing such excellent wines. And whilst I do enjoy very nice champagnes, more realistically day to day, I'm enjoying something like this. And Black Chalk was something we've actually only started working with quite recently, but I just think that they're a kind of a really nice sweet spot in terms of quality and price as well.
See, now, interesting fact for people listening, everyone thinks that English wine is all on chalk soils, and that, so therefore it's basically the English version of champagne. And of course, yes, we're making our wine with the same grapes and the same style. And actually, certainly where I'm based in Kent, we actually have the same temperature now that champagne had 30 years ago. So, all very, very interesting. However, there are so many places in England that are not planted on chalk soils. However, this one is.
This one is, yeah.
This is as classic as they come and what people think. So this is, for me, again, this is less about the fruit, and really always it's like this really piercing acidity in a very good way. And yeah. I haven't tried this one yet, but I've had Black Chalk many a time. So let me give this a go whilst you tell me more about whatever it is you want to tell me about English wine that people should know about.
So I think, you kind of covered the really important thing, that there is a huge amount of similarities between how champagne was maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago and what's happening in the UK now. But I feel we're kind of reaching a point where we're developing our own identity. And, we're no longer just saying, oh, we're just copying what the French were doing. I think the other thing to notice is that we're getting a lot more of these kind of vintage style wines. So typically champagne would be a non-vintage blend, and there's kind of historical reasons and consistency reasons that they did that. But I think one of the things very interesting about English sparkling wine is we're still celebrating vintage variation. And that's it gives us a slight degree of excitement every so often when the wine changes over.
Well, this is a 2022, everyone. And basically 2018, 2020, 2022, these are the three. If you want the more opulent, the richer, the potentially more reliable styles, they're brilliant. And then for anyone else who wants to know, 2025, it's this year.
Yeah.
That the winemakers are saying is the best year they've ever had in decades. So it'll be really interesting when those wines come on the market. But yeah, this is a wine from Hampshire. So we're not, a lot of the wineries are in Sussex and Kent and really kind of wrapping around the southeast of England. And it makes sense because it's warmer and it's less rainy. Hampshire, now you're going slightly west, but there is such a tension with Black Chalk wines. There is such elegance. So this is I find really crunchy fruit, this real pretty perfume of white flowers, and then just a little subtle brioche. But it's really, for me, it is chalky, it is mineral and really and linear and precise. That's what I like about the Black Chalk wines. So what would you, I'd pair this with nothing. I would just take this. Anything you would want to pair it with?
So, I'm with you. I like drinking this just on its own. I think that there could be a really fun Christmas morning. The idea of putting this in the case is you've got a nice fizz for kind of welcome drinks, celebrations. But if you want, I think there could be a very cool Christmas morning of having this with a bacon roll. Very, very fun, highbrow, lowbrow food and wine pairing, and just have a bit of fun with it, really.
Where would you, if somebody, because we have listeners all over the world, not just in England, if someone's coming to England or they're already in London,
yeah,
where for you is a must-visit English winery or two for 2026?
So the places that I've gone that I thought were really, really good fun, I think Gusbourne's a really great place to go and visit. If you want a good example of benchmark for quality in English sparkling wine, they are really, really hard to beat.
Quality-wise, outrageous, yep.
Black Chalk, I've not been to yet. We'll be taking the team there hopefully at the start of next year. Another really fun one to go and visit is Simpson's Estate down near Canterbury.
So you can go down the slide.
Just so you can go down the slide, yeah. So they've got this lovely tasting room, which is on like the second floor, and basically you have to leave by the slide. And I think that that's really cool. But also, when we went there, they were like, "Oh, we'll show you the vineyards," and you're like literally walking through this very quaint, picturesque English village, and then you just kind of turn a corner and you're in the vineyard. So there's kind of this lovely thing where you walk from the winery through the village to the vineyard, and I think that's really cool.
That's very, very cute.
It's very nice.
Do you know, it's so many people who've been following me for a while will know that I used to work for Balfour Winery. So I am a very big English wine fan. I do not anymore. Everybody, you can hire me for private events. There we go. Shout out for me. But I left Balfour Winery a few months ago, and only just a few days ago, the world's best vineyards came out for 2025. And it's weird. It used to be the 50 best vineyards of the world, and now there is a list that goes up to 100. Anyway, not complaining. Balfour Winery is in there. I don't know. I think they're in the 80 or 90s.
Yeah.
So there you go, everybody. Now, when I was going on about going to visit, I mean, the most amazing thing about that place is that as soon as you have arrived, you are on this incredible 400-acre estate, and you forget the world behind you. And it's vines and apple orchards and wildflower meadows and ancient woodlands and little lakes and waterways and arable land. And it's a beautiful place, and you can eat, you know, nibbles, or you can have fine dining, and they've got it all. So yeah, that was really nice to see, but also really annoying. I was like, oh, why didn't you have that when I was working for you?
I think you need to reframe it that they got there because of the work that you were doing, obviously.
That's so interesting. Do you know what? Because it's not just about how the vineyard looks. It's about the tourism experience. Yeah. It's about the education there. It's about what you can receive. Yeah. Oh. Well, my legacy. Thank you for that. Appreciate
exactly.
Right, second wine in the box, we have an Assyrtiko, but not from Santorini, which is where Assyrtiko is famous, but actually from central Greece. So do you want to tell us about why you popped this in the box? Oh, that even popped as well.
So this is a wine where in March this year, I went over to Inorama, which is like the Greek wine fair. I think it was possibly one of my favorite wine trips because it was kind of a bit unknown. Like I know that I like Greek wine, and I would say that I know a fairly good amount about the grape varieties in the regions, but we just got to try so many great and unusual things here. And I think this Assyrtiko has got lots going on for it. What was interesting was we were having a meal one night with the winemakers from Gaia Estate, who are really well known for loads of things, but in particular, they're Assyrtiko from Santorini. And they were saying that actually, with what's happening with climate change, it's becoming very, very difficult to make the kind of established style of Assyrtiko on Santorini now. And they're seeing a change where the volume produced is going down quite a lot, and therefore the price of that is going up. And so it's not uncommon for these kind of mainland versions of Assyrtiko to pop up. So not only is this wine, in my opinion, really nice because it's kind of, I think, the new style of Assyrtiko we're going to see. It's slightly softer and plusher. You know, Assyrtiko can be real lean and racy sometimes, kind of a bit Clear Valley Riesling for some people, I guess. And this is maybe just a little bit softer, a little bit more approachable. It's a bit more approachable in price as well, which I like.
Yeah, everyone likes that.
Yeah, so I think it's still got all that really lovely kind of mineral, citrusy thing that makes it a great option for our seafood starters in general, but it's not that kind of super austere style of acidity.
There's a really lovely texture in this. I mean, these are old vines, aren't they? It says old bush vines. There's also wild ferment. So for anybody who wants to know, when you're not using commercial yeast strains, which will give you a guaranteed outcome, this is working with nature. And very often people believe that that's going to give you the best example of the terroir, and generally often gives you slightly more savoury, less fruity characters, but obviously it could also go wrong as well. But this is really beautiful because actually there is a slightly more savoury edge, but it's really it's citrusy but peachy, and the minerality, the saltiness comes right at the end. But actually there's it's almost like not smoky it's like a sweet smoky perfume just lingering as I taste that. It's really, really drinkable, super fresh, lovely mouthfeel, but actually very, very approachable. So I love this. And Muses Winery are doing great things. I love all of their wines.
Yeah, again, we're a really big fan of, I think we've got maybe 3 of their wines in the shop, which, as I said, for a list of just 100 wines, that's quite a lot. But I think that Assyrtiko was always this thing that, you know, as a kind of sommelier, I knew it and we got all really excited about it. But some of the styles that were available were very extreme. They had this really intense acidity, this really mineral character. And I feel that this has got maybe more of like a broader appeal. Like it's a great way to introduce people to not only Greece, but this great variety.
I've just poured myself a little bit more. It's delicious. I mean, I would have this. You were talking about seafood, weren't you?
Yeah.
I would love, because there is this slight smoked edge, but in just a really lovely, rounded, sweeter way. I'd love it with some grilled octopus.
Yeah, I can totally see that working. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I mean, but then again, on Christmas Day, does anyone have time to make grilled octopus? Just fried calamari, it'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah. But I think, you know, that's one of the things that I always love about Greek wines as a whole is how good they are with food. And I think that, you know, as I said, this trip to Athens for Inarana was fantastic on so many levels. But I think one of the best bits was that the kind of the hospitality elements, like the wines we were drinking and the places we were eating as a combination were just fantastic.
Do you have any recommendations as well from being in Athens? I assume you stayed there though, where you think that people should go and visit as a Greek region. I mean, here, when we say this is central Greece, this is the Muses Winery are in the Valley of the Muses, which is still, it's northwest of Athens. But I mean, we're talking hours and hours and hours. I'm not quite sure how far, but it's not next to Athens.
No.
Was there anywhere nice near to Athens that people could go to?
So because we were there kind of like for the fair, it was kind of almost the opposite, where all the wineries had come to Athens.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really go and experiment and visit places near. I would say that if you're wanting to kind of experiment with Greece as a region, I think that there's really good examples happening in the Peloponnese, and I think Macedonia in the north as well. You know, depending on the style of you like, you get some really interesting reds a little bit more from Macedonia. But I think that, you know, it's just such an exciting region where things are kind of constantly getting better. They're getting more affordable. The interesting thing that we were talking about out there was that Greece's route to the UK market was basically, they only wanted to send us the really, really good quality wines at first, so that people like yourself and myself would get behind them and get really, really excited. And now that that's happened and you can go to supermarkets and wine shops and restaurants and try them, they're now starting to say, actually, here's some more affordable, maybe not entry level, but here's more approachable in terms of price. And so I hope we'll start to see Greek wines becoming a little bit more, not mainstream, but accessible. If we can get past the language barrier bit.
I know it is. It's Xenamavro spelt with an X is not exactly the easiest thing to say. But I have to say, yes, we as sommeliers, people in the wine world, Greece, how many years now have we been saying, this is the year for Greek wine? Like, this is the year it's going to explode. But everybody trust us. I mean, Assyrtiko is the white grape variety. But you can also try now Savatiano, Rhoditis. These are, I'm just thinking about central Greece area where this winery is, which are the famous 2 great varieties that would normally be in Retsina.
Yeah.
And for anyone who knows about Retsina, typically in the past, I mean, just pine resin wine is just not nice. But I've actually tried some now. They're being really smart with the use of the pine resin. And there are some really interesting, fresh versions of Retsina to investigate should somebody want to explore something historic.
I kind of think it's like what happened with like Lambrusco and that sort of thing. You know, we got introduced to such awful versions of it in the UK. There are the good versions out there. You just have to go and hunt for them. And it's kind of, you know, it's a risky journey is kind of the best way to describe it. Like there's gonna be a lot of failure in that. You will hopefully find something great, but there's also going to be a few interesting experiences, I think.
My word of advice, if you're at home, buy Assyrtiko for your white, you're all good. But when you go to Greece, try a little bit of Retsina when it's by the glass in a restaurant, because then if you don't like it, it's not the worst thing in the world. Or find a place that's offering you, a wine shop that does tastings. That would probably be safer, because Retsina, it's definitely still an acquired taste, I would say. Okay, right, third wine. Old vine again. Interesting. You've gone old vines. This is giving you that beautiful concentration. And I typically find a minerality really goes through. There's this kind of elegance, this undertone with old vine wines. So you've picked a Chenin Blanc, Brookdale from South Africa. Why this one?
So I think, as we talked about earlier, the kind of classic white wine option here is something like an oak Chardonnay, and that's a lovely thing. But there's also a bit of a perception around Chardonnay for a lot of the public. We came across this wine and it does all the same things from a food and wine pairing perspective, but I think it just introduces people to a new perspective. And we as a team just got really excited about this wine. It's very, very decadent, very rich, very kind of creamy. I was saying just before we started, we kind of had this ongoing joke that our bar manager has a dairy intolerance, and she's like, I'm actually concerned drinking this wine because it is so creamy in style. But when we go to South Africa, our Chenin Blanc can kind of go two directions. It can either go very light and fun and fruity, and we'll sometimes blend that with other grape varieties, or we go down this kind of old vine route where they take a lot of care in the vineyard, they control the yields, or it's old vine, and then they treat that really nicely with a good amount of oak and lees aging, and we get this very kind of textured and creamy style of wine.
I think you're so right. First of all, Chardonnay, and especially oak Chardonnay, is such a classic for Christmas. You already mentioned that would be your choice for turkey and all the trimmings. This is a perfect replacement. And actually, I always say this, if you are actually blind tasting Chenin versus Chardonnay, very often, because of the texture, because of the acidity and the structure components within both wines, they actually are quite hard to blind taste correctly. You may mix them up. You almost need to look for that quince character, or maybe a slightly honeyed character that might come from the Chenin that wouldn't come from the Chardonnay. But still, that's difficult. Yeah. But I have to say, totally agree with you. Basically, if anyone wants an opulent, rich, super juicy though, but massive creamy wine, then this is, approved.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I mean, is there for you any standout other producers that you believe deserve some love for their old vine Chenins?
Specifically for their old vine Chenin, I mean, you've got kind of the well-known stuff, like, you've got your Ken Forster kind of thing. But I think that what's lovely about South Africa is that you can go there and you can get everything. You know what I mean? They do such a wide variety of styles. And so I think as a country, you can have some really interesting time exploring there. A lot now we're seeing the slightly cooler parts of South Africa kind of coming into the light. So it's known for these big, intense kind of Stellenbosch Bordeaux style blends. But some of the producers that we're finding that are quite interesting are guys like Lismore, which are high altitude. Oh my gosh. And their wines, their wines are exceptional. And
I'm in love with her. She's created this Greyton, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
She's planted this region. No one else is there. The wines are sensational. I tasted her Viognier the other day, and Viognier can be really fat, opulent, too rich, too peachy, too over the top. This was absolutely majestic. It was so pure. It was so delicate. And anybody listening, she had a massive fire a few years ago.
That's right, yeah.
And has had to rebuild herself. And my God, Lismore. I tell you what, everything else, screw it. Lismore. Yeah. Anything you can find that's Lismore, go Lismore.
It's interesting. So apparently she was, she told me one time that she was looking for somewhere to make South Africa's version of Condrieu. So Viognier was her thing. And then when she started planting, she went, oh, actually, we could probably do some all right, Chardonnay and some Pinot Noir and stuff here. And, I think it was maybe last Christmas, we had her Chardonnay and her Pinot Noir in the shop. And basically, if people were coming in, they're like, oh, I'm thinking of buying Burgundy for Christmas. We're like, you could. But if you want something that's going to be substantially more interesting and probably a little bit better value for money, go for this instead.
This is an insider secret. Totally. Yeah. Absolutely approved. Right, let's get on to the Sangiovese. So this is Roccafiore Sangiovese from Umbria in Italy. Now, most people know of Chianti, but few people are talking about Umbria. So what makes an Umbrian Sangiovese so special?
So technically, like the information behind this is that Umbria is kind of inland from Tuscany. It's landlocked, and so everything is a bit warmer. And I find that gives us a little bit more of a plusher character. The tannins are a little bit softer. The story behind this was basically, I was at one of our industry tastings, and you know what it's like. You've got these like big tables and hundreds of wines, and we were at the table where all the Chiantis were, and we were trying them, and they were very nice. And then on the table next to them, they had Umbria, and they had this wine. And I tried this and felt that it was a better, more interesting wine than a lot of the Chiantis that I'd tried. It was a little bit less in terms of price, and I just felt that it offered a really different style. And I would normally say that, like, I wouldn't recommend like a Chianti as a pairing for Christmas Day turkey, but I think this is kind of... This is kind of, if you're someone that, we said that Pinot Noir is a classic pairing for turkey, and some people find Pinot Noir a bit too light, a bit thin, a bit watery. And if you want something that's got just a bit more going on, I think this is really cool.
I think what I love about Sangiovese in general is that it is a grape variety that is more on the slightly umami side. So there are grape varieties like Sanso, and that are going to be really red fruited, really juicy, and leaning towards maybe fruits and flowers.
Yeah.
But what I find with Sangiovese, I mean, there's still actually some dried floral notes in there as well, but it's always more herby. And I get taken to this like walking into a charcuterie shop in Italy. I want where they've got all of the meat hanging down, and then they've got the sprigs of sage and thyme, and I feel like I'm always connected with the earth a little bit more. There's a rusticity to Sangiovese, not always in terms of tannic structure, but it's just the way I feel with it if I'm comparing it to a plusher, fruitier, different wine. So and this feels a little soulful, and I really do get like some more the cranberry fruits, but it's a little bit darker than what I would normally expect from Chianti Sangiovese. And then you still got all of these herbs. I really feel like there is thyme, there is sage, there is rosemary in there. Yeah. And it's got a lovely mouthfeel, but actually it's still quite chalky tannins, really soft, so only medium bodied. It's got delicacy, but it's got a nice concentration. It's got slight earthiness that actually, this is a wine that's going to be very, very versatile.
I think when we, so I teach WSET 1 and 2, and we use a kind of a classic Chianti this is high acid, high tannin. And normally when you get the students to try it, they're like, this is really quite an austere experience, and it's almost a wine that needs food to mellow it out. Yeah. And I think this is really lovely with food. I have this a lot with roast chicken and roast turkey, but it does also fit into a wine that is soft enough to be enjoyable by itself.
It's elegant, but the tannins are slightly granular, adding this structure. So I think that it's got a nice balance. But this is really beautiful. And Umbria, I mean, this is a region that's known for its Sagrantino, which, by the way, everybody, if you want something that will rip your mouth apart in a good way, the biggest tannins, I think Sagrantino is the most tannic wine in the world. Beats Tanit. Yeah, I can't think of any other wine. Sagrantino. So this is the world of Sagrantino.
Yeah.
Montefalco, everybody. Do check it out. So Umbria has a lot going on. Quite clearly, great value, Sangiovese, and then some pretty hardcore, tannic, grippy Sagrantino to check out.
If you want to punish yourself a little bit, go and try Sagrantino.
In a really good way, punish yourself. No, brilliant. Okay, let's go on to now completely different, full and plush. You've chosen the Malbec Cabernet Sauvignon blend called Hey Diddle.
Yeah.
Hey Diddle Diddle, the cat had a fiddle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
From Clare Valley, which is interesting, in Australia.
Yeah.
When I think of Clare, when we all think of Clare Valley, if we know this region, we think of Riesling. But actually, there's been quite a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon Malbec blends coming out of here. So what is going on? You must know a bit more about that than me.
So I think Hey Diddle as a producer is, I mean, this sums up nicely when we say, like, they're not typical. They're atypical in everything that they do, the kind of the approach to winemaking. And I think that's the reason why we got on so well with them. So the winery themselves is based in Barossa, but these grapes come from the Clare Valley, and they're not wanting to give us like a classic jammy Aussie wine here. It's aiming for something that's much more kind of restraint and a little bit mineral in style. I think a Malbec Cab Sauv blend on the face of it sounds like a wine that is going to be wildly intense. And actually, I think this wine is more about complexity of flavor rather than intensity of flavor, which I quite like.
I love the fact as well. The bottle is absolutely fun. It's a little stumpy bottle,
Yeah.
a little bit different. And it's a wax lid. Love a wax top. Tip for everyone, when you see a wax top, you don't need to cut around it like it's foil. Just go all in, guns a-blazing, get your little coil straight in there. It's just what I've done.
Yeah.
Easy peasy, and it pulls out. It should break. Most of them break nice and easily, and you don't have a mess. So yes, trying to cut around is only going to make your life much harder. But yeah, let's give this a little go. Oh, do you know what I love about this? It's got lovely fruit intensity, but I'm also getting that a little bit of mocha, earthy. Yeah. So it's like cacao, slightly savory notes. So it's not this big cassis, plush style.
So these guys also do a really interesting Montepulciano, which again, Montepulciano we'd expect it to be this big hearty wine. And it, again, like this, it's just so delicate and approachable in style.
Interesting. Montepulciano in Australia. Yeah, there's some actually really fun Italian varieties growing there. This is lovely, actually. This is not, it has lovely sweetness of fruit without actually being sweet, because there's this actually licorice, cloves. There's a nice, am I just doing this to myself because this is a Christmas episode? I'm getting a bit of Christmas spices going on in here. But no, it is. It's that cacao, mocha, coffee, clove, licorice. But at the same time, the fruit is still front row and center. But the tannins, Malbec has the sweetest of tannins. They're polymerized. They're really perfect in your mouth. Quite clearly, this blend, you've got some structure from the Cabernet. But the Malbec is just making it very easy. I would just say, recommendation, this is a very dangerous wine.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, the case you've got, the kind of staff picks case, is very much if you're wanting to kind of have a conversation starter around a bottle of wine. This was actually, we did an event for those who get our wine club where basically we order in a load of samples, stuff that we've never tried before. And then we invite a lot of them into the shop and we try the wines with them. And they're kind of giving us real-time feedback on it. And this was, I think from the event where we opened this up the first time, this was the wine of the night. Yeah.
This is plush.
Yeah.
But in a fresh way. This is just so, I can feel everything in my mouth. It's an explosion of fruit, but not in this heavy way. Oh my God, this is rather delightful. Right.
Yeah, this is a very good start to the day. It really is.
Start to the day. We are going to finish with the heaviest, most insane, decadent wine for Christmas or for any time of the year. But, and it has a wax top again.
Yay.
This is Pedro Ximénez PX. And interestingly, actually, okay, I'm looking at the bottle now. This says Jerez de la Frontera. And you're going to tell me where this grows, but I'm assuming most of it is not actually in Jerez. This is growing in the Montilla-Moriles, is where most Pedro Ximénez grows. But apparently it can say Jerez, or it can be called a sherry if it's aged in Jerez or El Puerto or San Luca for 2 years minimum. Yes. So that's one of the exceptions to the rule, even though the grapes are not growing in Jerez. They're growing in Montilla-Moriles. Right, let's get this wax lid open again. Tell me about why this one made the cut.
So I think that it is, as you said, it is a really decadent style of dessert wine or sweet wine or fortified wine. And it just has such Christmas vibes to it. It is kind of like liquid mince pie or liquid Christmas pudding in a glass. And I guess, again, from a staff picks perspective, sherry is a really kind of divisive style. Most of us, when we think of sherry, either think of the dry sherry or we think of kind of like the nap sherry that your nan used to drink. And I think that Pedro Ximénez as a style is one of these ones where if you put it in front of people and they try it, like, this is a mind-blowing thing. And so we wanted to try and introduce as many people as possible to it. I think the defining characteristic of Pedro Ximénez is it has this almost like treacle and olive oil like consistency to it. And this is definitely a sweet and intense wine, but it's not as intense as it can get. So I think this is kind of like a nice way for people to test out how they feel about Pedro Ximénez.
I mean, for me, you mentioned earlier about having it with sticky toffee pudding, but my classic is vanilla ice cream, high quality vanilla ice cream, and pour it over the top.
A dessert within itself. Yeah.
That, again, is one of the wine and food experiences in life that I think so many people are missing. And when they have it, their whole world is going to change. There is a before and an after when you have Pedro Ximénez with ice cream, right?
We've done a couple of sherry tastings in the shop, and what we'll do for the final wine, which is this, is we serve them kind of like two versions. We're like, we're going to give you in two glasses. One you can just try by yourself, and the other one, if you want to, we're going to serve you some ice cream and you can tip it in. And everyone does it with ice cream and everyone talks about it. It is by far the best part of that tasting.
Oh my God, this is coffee and chocolate and then like a, floral honey.
Yeah.
Acacia honey, blossom honey, something like that. But then dates and raisins and I guess figs.
It's all the Christmas things.
But this is not actually syrup. This is a fresher Pedro Ximénez compared to others.
Yes.
Interestingly enough. But again, I guess can we touch on the soils? Because actually the soils, I want to be geeky for a second, because it actually does say they don't always grow on the same soils because there are different ones. But here specifically, it does say that the grapes are grown on Albarissa soil. Yes. And this is such a cool chalky soil. Have you ever been to the region? Because I haven't.
No, I've not. No, I think our bar manager went there earlier this year and she had a great time. She's the sherry person as far as our shop goes. So no, on the list, I would say.
It's such a fascinating soil. And apparently as well in the summer, it crusts up so it can retain the moisture, because otherwise actually the water just really disappears, and they often create these little stairs.
They create little trenches so that when it does rain, they kind of capture as much as possible. Yeah.
It's a fascinating, that's a place where sherry doesn't get the love it deserves, but of course it has all these different styles. But sherry can still be confusing as a category because there are the wines aged under floor, so they're quite salty and yeasty. And then you have the wines that are oxidatively aged, so then they're quite nutty. People don't get it. They're not necessarily fresh wines.
Nope.
But Pedro Ximénez, at the end of the day, regardless of whether you're calling it sherry or whether you are calling this a PX from Montilla-Moriles, it is just a divine, enjoyable wine, is it not?
Yeah, we do a Christmas wine fair, and this is typically the last wine. So people work around, they'll try their fizzes, their whites, their reds, they'll have some ports, and this is like the final thing. And it's probably the last thing people are planning on buying when they go into the event, but it also ends up being one of the best sellers because I don't think people have tried anything like it before.
And actually, this is a half bottle as well. So it means that you don't need too much, to be honest. You want a small pour and then you're going to be super, super happy. And yeah, it's fun. In fact, I really do want to go to Montilla-Moriles because it's really close to Cordoba. And fun fact, did you know that Cordoba has 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites?
Oh, I did not.
So amazing town, loads of bars. And you know what it's like when you go to a cool town in Spain. You're going to have the best time just eating and nibbling and this and that and whatever. And then you can pop to the vineyards and get to know Pedro Ximénez better.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, as we sum up, what is the one wine that you always open up at Christmas that's maybe not in this box?
It is in this box. It's English fizz.
Here we go.
Yeah, just like it. I love it. My wife loves it. And I just think that, I feel that we're so lucky to have such a cool style of wine so accessible to us. So there's not a Christmas where we're not opening some form of fizz.
Love it. Listen, everybody listening, I'm going to put links in the show notes where you can look up the Wee Vinoteca, find out about the wine club. And of course, if you're in England, sorry, everyone who's not, then you can order yourself a Christmas box and see if you agree with the two of us on these wines that have been put in the box, which I think are delicious. So thank you so much, Duncan. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Tom. Thank you.
Speak to you soon. And Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Merry Christmas.
Gosh, there is so much to talk about when it comes to Christmas wine. Well, to leave you on a festive note, you know the saying, oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the wine is so delightful. And so, 'tis the season to be sipping. I wish you a wonderful, cosy December filled with twinkling lights and warmed bellies and time spent with the people who make you sparkle. Until next Monday, wine friends, cheers to you.